Part 1. First Contact and the Ultimatum. The warning siren started at 3 in the morning, pulling Jake Morrison from a restless sleep aboard the orbital station. He floated through the narrow corridor to the command center, his heart already racing before he knew why. The night shift crew sat frozen at their stations, staring at the main display screen. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked, pulling himself into the captain's chair. Amy Collins, his science officer, turned to face him. Her face was pale in the blue light of the monitors. "Sir, we have multiple contacts near Jupiter. They just appeared out of nowhere. No heat signatures, no propulsion trails. One moment empty space, the next moment they were just there." Jake studied the screen. 12 massive objects hung in space near Jupiter's orbit, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They weren't moving, just waiting. The largest one sat in the center, easily 5 kilometers long, shaped like a blade pointing toward the inner solar system. "How long ago?" Jake asked. 17 minutes. "They've been broadcasting on every frequency we have." Same message repeating. Amy hesitated. "Sir, it's a first contact scenario. They're talking to us." Jake felt his mouth go dry. Humanity had been searching for alien life for over a century. They'd found bacteria on Mars, some interesting chemistry on Europa, but nothing intelligent. Nothing that could build ships and cross the vast emptiness between stars. Now apparently the aliens had found them first. "Play the message," he said. The speakers crackled to life. The voice was smooth, translated into perfect English by whatever technology the aliens possessed. "People of Earth, we are the Valkyran Empire. We have claimed 347 star systems across this region of the galaxy. Your sun is now part of Imperial space. You have 30 of your days to make a choice. Surrender all weapons, accept our governance, and you will be treated fairly as a vassal species. Refuse, and we will take what is ours by force. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact." The message ended and began again from the beginning. Jake listened to it repeat twice more, his mind racing through implications and possibilities. Amy was already pulling up data on her screen, analyzing the alien ships with every sensor they had. "Can you tell me anything about their technology?" Jake asked. "They're using some kind of energy shield. Our radar bounces right off. Power readings are off the scale. Whatever drives those ships, it's nothing we understand. And Jake, they crossed 4 astronomical units in the time it took us to detect them. That's faster than light travel. Real, working faster than light." Amy's voice cracked slightly. "We're completely outmatched." Jake opened a communication channel to Earth. Within minutes, he was connected to the Global Defense Council. President Helen Burke appeared on his screen, surrounded by military advisors and scientists. She looked tired, but her voice was steady. "Captain Morrison, I assume you've reviewed the alien transmission. What's your assessment?" "Ma'am, based on what we're seeing, they have technology we can't match. Faster than light travel, energy shields, ships the size of cities. If they want to take Earth by force, our orbital defenses won't stop them." General Marcus Stone leaned into the frame. The old soldier's face was carved from granite, expression unreadable. "Captain, that's a military assessment. Now I need your gut feeling. Are they bluffing?" Jake thought about it. "No, sir. I don't think so. They sound like they've done this before. Like we're just another primitive species to add to their collection." The general nodded slowly. "That's what I thought too." He looked at someone off screen. "Bring him in." A new face appeared in the video feed. Dr. Peter Hayes was thin, nervous-looking, with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore a security badge that Jake had never seen before, marked with clearance codes above his own level. "Captain Morrison," the president said, "Dr. Hayes runs a research division you've never heard of. For 40 years, since we first started seriously looking for alien life, we've been preparing for this exact scenario." "Peter, show him." The scientist pulled up a series of files. Images of weapons, facilities, test results. Jake felt his blood run cold as he understood what he was seeing. "Project Nightfall," Dr. Hayes said quietly. "We started with a simple question. What do we do if we encounter a hostile alien species with superior technology? We can't outfight them, so we focused on making victory too expensive. Kinetic kill vehicles hidden in the asteroid belt. Fusion bombs disguised as mining equipment on Mars and Luna. And the big one, relativistic projectiles that we've been secretly building for 30 years. "Relativistic projectiles?" Jake asked. "Weapons accelerated to 90% the speed of light. Each one carries more kinetic energy than our entire nuclear arsenal. We have 12 of them, aimed at the 12 largest Valkyran population centers we've been able to identify through their communications. If they attack us, if they destroy Earth, those weapons launch automatically. We can't stop them even if we wanted to. Mutual assured destruction on a galactic scale. The room fell silent. Jake stared at the images on his screen, trying to process what he was hearing. Humanity had been preparing for alien contact by building doomsday weapons. Not weapons to win a war, but weapons to make sure everyone lost. President Burke spoke again. Captain Morrison, the Council has made a decision. We're going to send a response to the Valkyran Empire. We're going to tell them to leave, and you're going to deliver that message. Ma'am, they said this wasn't a negotiation. It's not, General Stone said grimly. It's a warning. We're going to tell them exactly what will happen if they attack us. Every detail. We're going to make sure they understand that if they destroy Earth, we take their empire down with us. 2 hours later, Jake found himself in a shuttle, approaching the alien ships. Amy sat beside him, monitoring their systems nervously. The Valkyran had agreed to receive an emissary, probably expecting humanity to beg for mercy or negotiate better surrender terms. The largest ship filled their view screen. Up close it was even more impressive. The hull was smooth, almost organic-looking, covered in patterns that might have been armor or decoration. A bay opened in the side, and the shuttle was drawn in by some kind of tractor beam. They were met by a hologram. The alien called himself Ambassador Tirkin. He was tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like oil on water. His eyes were cold as he studied the 2 humans. You come to discuss terms of surrender? Tirkin asked. Jake straightened his uniform. No. I come to deliver a message from Earth. Leave our solar system. Leave now and never come back. The alien's expression changed to something that might have been amusement. You dare issue demands? You who cannot even leave your own star system? It's not a demand, Jake said quietly. It's a warning. If you attack Earth, we will destroy your empire. Every major Valkyran world, every population center we've identified. We have weapons in place that will launch automatically if Earth falls. You'll win the battle and lose everything that matters. He pulled out a data device and held it up. This contains every technical detail of our defensive systems. Scan it, analyze it, show it to your scientists. We're not bluffing. We're not negotiating. We're telling you to run while you can. Tirkin took the device. For a long moment he studied Jake with those alien eyes. Then he laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Primitive species always threaten mutual destruction. It never stops us. We have conquered worlds that made similar claims. In 30 days we will return with our full fleet. Prepare to kneel or prepare to die. The hologram vanished. The shuttle was pushed back out into space. As they flew back toward the orbital station, Amy looked at Jake with worry in her eyes. Do you think they believed us? Jake watched the alien ships on the display. No, they think we're bluffing. They think we'll back down when we see their full strength. He took a deep breath. They're about to learn that humans don't bluff about extinction. 3 weeks later, the Valkyran fleet arrived. 300 warships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their weapons armed and shields raised. Admiral Carthon commanded from the flagship, confident in his victory. He sent one final message to Earth. Your time is over. Submit or be destroyed. The response from Earth was simple. We warned you. Part 2. The Empire Strikes. Admiral Carthon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and felt satisfaction course through him. 300 warships filled the space around him, the largest invasion fleet assembled in a generation. Below, on his tactical display, the primitive planet called Earth hung like ripe fruit waiting to be picked. Status report, he commanded. His tactical officer brought up the display. All ships report ready, Admiral. The humans have orbital stations, chemical rockets, and what appears to be nuclear weapons. Nothing that can threaten our shields. Recommend immediate assault on outer system colonies to demonstrate our power. Carthon nodded. This would be over quickly. 17 times he had led invasion fleets against rebellious worlds. 17 times he had crushed resistance and brought order. These humans would be no different. They had threatened mutual destruction, claimed they had weapons that could destroy the Empire. Every species made such claims. None had ever followed through. Target the mining colonies on Ceres and Europa. Full bombardment. I want them to see what happens when they defy the Empire. The fleet's weapons powered up. Plasma cannons capable of melting mountains locked onto their targets. Carthon watched the screens as the colonies appeared in targeting view. He could see the structures, the domes, the lights of civilization on those distant rocks. Then he gave the order and the lights went out forever. The bombardment lasted 30 seconds. When it ended, Ceres was a field of molten rock and debris. Europa's ice shell had been cracked open, exposing the ocean beneath to the vacuum of space. Thousands of humans had died in an instant, vaporized before they could even understand what was happening. "Broadcast to Earth," Carthon ordered. "Tell them this is just the beginning. They have one final chance to surrender." On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath Colorado, President Helen Burke watched the destruction with tears streaming down her face. General Marcus Stone stood beside her, his hand resting on a secure terminal. Around them, military officers and government officials sat in stunned silence. "They killed everyone," someone whispered. "Ceres, Europa, both colonies gone." Burke wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. "General Stone, activate Protocol Nightfall." All phases. The general's face was carved from stone. "Madam President, once we start this, there's no going back. Millions will die, maybe billions." "They already started it," Burke said, her voice hard as iron. "Now we finish it. Activate the protocol." Stone entered the authorization codes. Across the solar system, hidden systems came online. On Mars, Commander Lisa Grant received the signal she had been dreading. She looked around at her command center, at the young officers who trusted her to lead them. Then she keyed her communicator. "All personnel, begin evacuation procedures. Get everyone to the deep bunkers. We have 4 hours." She paused, then added, "And arm the defense grid. All weapons free. Commander, the defense grid can't stop them. Their shields are too strong." Lisa smiled grimly. "The grid isn't there to stop them. It's there to make them bleed." 2 million people lived on Mars. The evacuation was chaos. Families running for the underground shelters, children crying, people shouting. Lisa coordinated from the command center as long as she could, then made her way to her own assigned shelter. Behind her, the automated systems took control. The Valkyrie fleet approached Mars with confidence. Admiral Carthon expected surrender. Instead, his sensors detected weapons powering up. He laughed. "They mean to fight us with their primitive technology? Destroy their defense platforms." The first volley of plasma fire lanced down from orbit, destroying 3 human weapons platforms. Then the humans fired back and Carthon stopped laughing. The defense platforms didn't fire plasma or lasers. They fired tungsten rods, each one 20 feet long and moving at 30 kilometers per second. The rods had no guidance systems, no explosives, no complicated technology. They were just very heavy objects moving very fast. The first rod hit a Valkyrie destroyer's shields and punched straight through. The kinetic energy was so great that the shield generators overloaded before they could adapt. The rod continued through the hull, through the reactor core, and out the other side. The ship exploded. Then the second rod hit, and the third, and the fourth. The orbital platforms were firing continuously now, filling space with supersonic projectiles. Valkyrie ships tried to dodge, but the rods were too fast and too numerous. Shields failed. Hulls cracked open. Ships died. Evasive maneuvers. Carthon shouted, "Get us out of range!" The fleet pulled back, leaving 47 burning wrecks in Mars orbit. Carthon stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. 47 ships, destroyed by chunks of metal fired from primitive railguns. The humans hadn't tried to win. They had simply made victory expensive. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "they're using kinetic weapons. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. They're not optimized for high-velocity solid projectiles." "I can see that," Carthon snapped. He studied the tactical display. Earth lay ahead, no doubt protected by similar weapons. Behind him, the rest of the Empire watched through communication relays. He had already lost 15% of his fleet. If he retreated now, he would be branded a coward. He had to press forward, reform the fleet, maintain defensive spacing. We proceed to Earth. Back on Earth, Jake Morrison watched the battle footage from the orbital station. Amy Collins ran the numbers again and again, hardly believing what she was seeing. "They lost 47 ships," she said. "Jake, we actually hurt them. We made them bleed," Jake corrected. "But they're still coming. And there are still over 250 ships in that fleet." General Stone's face appeared on the communication screen. "Captain Morrison, the Valkyrie fleet is moving through the asteroid belt. Phase 2 of Nightfall is about to begin. I need you and Lieutenant Collins to take one of our stealth ships and get into position. You'll be coordinating the attack. What's Phase 2? Jake asked, though part of him already knew. Stone's smile was cold. We're going to throw rocks at them. Really big rocks. Dr. Peter Hayes had spent 20 years planning Phase 2. The concept was simple. Identify large asteroids, attach fusion drives to them, and turn them into projectiles. The execution had been enormously expensive and complex, requiring secret mining operations, hidden construction facilities, and enough fuel to move mountains. Now, as Carthon's fleet entered the asteroid belt, 300 asteroids began to move. They didn't move fast, not at first. They simply adjusted their orbits, aligning themselves with the projected path of the Valkyran fleet. Then the fusion drives activated at full power. Jake watched from his stealth ship as the asteroids accelerated. Each one was at least a kilometer across, massing billions of tons. They picked up speed slowly but inevitably, pushed by drives designed to move them over months or years, now burning at maximum thrust for hours. The fleet is detecting them, Amy reported, but they think they're natural asteroids may be disrupted by the gravitational effects of their ships. Let's keep it that way, Jake said. He was using coded laser bursts to fine-tune the asteroids' trajectories, making tiny adjustments to ensure they hit their targets. The Valkyran couldn't detect the laser signals, and by the time they realized the asteroids were guided, it would be too late. Admiral Carthon saw the asteroids on his display but paid them little attention. Space was full of rocks. His ships had navigated through worse. He focused on the approaching Earth, already planning his assault strategy. Then his tactical officer shouted a warning. Admiral, those asteroids are accelerating. They're on intercept courses. Carthon looked at the display again. The officer was right. The asteroids were moving far too fast to be natural. They were weapons just like the kinetic rods at Mars, but on a scale that made his blood run cold. Each asteroid was a mountain of rock and metal, moving at thousands of kilometers per second. Evasive maneuvers. All ships emergency thrust! But physics didn't care about emergency maneuvers. The asteroids had too much momentum, were moving too fast. The Valkyran ships were designed to fight other ships, not dodge planetoids. The first asteroid hit a Valkyran battlecruiser head-on. The ship's shields flared bright enough to light up the belt, then failed. The asteroid didn't even slow down. It simply erased the ship from existence, leaving nothing but expanding gases and debris. Then the second asteroid hit. And the third. The asteroid field became a killing ground as chunks of rock and ice slammed into the fleet. Ships that tried to dodge ran into other asteroids. Ships that stood their ground were smashed to pieces. In 10 minutes of violence, 70 more Valkyran warships died. The Eternal Dominion survived by pure luck, a near-miss asteroid passing close enough to scramble their sensors, but not close enough to destroy them. Carthon pulled his surviving ships out of the belt and took stock. He had started with 300 ships. He was down to less than 200. On Earth, President Burke watched the casualty reports with grim satisfaction. How many ships left? 183, ma'am, General Stone reported. They've lost over a third of their fleet and they haven't even reached Earth yet. Will it be enough to stop them? Stone shook his head. No, but it might be enough to make them wish they'd listened. Part 3. The asteroid Gambit Admiral Carthon sat alone in his quarters staring at the casualty reports. 117 ships lost, 17,000 Valkyran warriors dead, and they hadn't even engaged the human homeworld yet. The numbers made no sense. How could a species without faster-than-light travel inflict such devastating losses? His communication console chimed. The face of High Command appeared on the screen, transmitted across light years through the hyperspace relay network. The council members looked displeased. Admiral Carthon, explain your losses. He straightened in his chair. The humans fight without honor. They use kinetic weapons, simple rocks and metal, moving at extreme velocities. Our shields were designed for energy weapons and sophisticated missiles. They're less effective against primitive projectiles. You have lost over a third of your fleet to rocks, one council member said coldly. Perhaps we should send someone more competent to finish this campaign. Carthon felt anger flash through him. With respect, these humans are unlike any species we've encountered. They're not trying to win. They're trying to make victory cost more than it's worth. Every weapon they've used has been designed for maximum destruction, at minimum technological sophistication. Then adapt and overcome, Admiral. The Empire does not accept defeat from a pre-FTL species. Conquer this world or do not return. The transmission ended. Carthon sat in silence for a long moment, then called his senior officers to the bridge. They had to finish this, no matter the cost. On the hidden lunar facility, Dr. Peter Hayes worked without sleep, coordinating the defensive systems. He had dark circles under his eyes and his hands shook from too much coffee and too little rest. Around him, technicians monitored the Valkyran fleet's approach. "How long until they reach Earth orbit?" he asked. 12 hours at their current speed, a technician replied. "They're moving slowly, probably expecting more surprises." "They're right to be cautious," Peter muttered. He pulled up the schematics for Phase 3. The orbital defense network was humanity's last conventional line of defense. After that, things would get truly apocalyptic. He opened a communication channel to Earth. General Stone appeared on the screen, looking as tired as Peter felt. "The Valkyran will reach Earth orbit by morning," Peter said. "The orbital network is ready. But Marcus, you need to understand. Once we activate everything, there's no hiding what we've done. The whole galaxy will know that humanity built weapons of mass destruction and used them without hesitation." "The whole galaxy will know we don't surrender," Stone replied. "Activate the network. All systems." Across Earth's orbital space, systems that had pretended to be communication satellites and weather stations for decades revealed their true nature. Weapons platforms unmasked, pointing deadly arrays toward the approaching fleet. Nuclear bombs hidden inside defunct satellites armed their triggers. Drone factories that had been slowly building their payloads for years released swarms of autonomous hunter-killers. Commander Lisa Grant had made it back from Mars on an emergency transport. She was exhausted, traumatized from watching her colony burn, but she refused to rest. Now she coordinated the ground-based defenses from a command center in North America. "All missile silos report ready," her tactical officer reported. "We have everything from conventional warheads to the special packages." Lisa nodded. The special packages were antimatter-tipped missiles, hideously expensive and incredibly dangerous. Humanity had only managed to build 23 of them. Each one could destroy a city or punch through any shield yet invented. They were weapons of last resort. "Hold them in reserve," she ordered. "We'll need them when the fighting gets really bad." Captain Jake Morrison brought his stealth ship back to the orbital station. He and Amy Collins had been flying missions for 72 hours straight, and they were both running on adrenaline and desperation. As they docked, Jake looked out at Earth, turning peacefully below them. From orbit, you couldn't see the defensive preparations, the millions of people huddled in shelters, the weapons being aimed at the sky. "It's beautiful," Amy said quietly. "Strange how you don't appreciate it until someone tries to take it away." Jake squeezed her hand. "We're going to keep it, whatever it costs." The Valkyran fleet approached in a defensive formation, shields at maximum, sensors sweeping for threats. They had learned caution in the asteroid belt. Admiral Carthon divided his forces, sending scouts ahead to probe for hidden weapons. The scouts found them immediately. The orbital defense network lit up like a constellation of angry stars. Plasma beams, laser arrays, particle accelerators, all firing at once. The lead Valkyran ships returned fire, and the battle for Earth began. Jake watched from the command center as space filled with light and death. The Valkyran plasma weapons carved through human platforms like a knife through paper, destroying dozens every minute. But for every platform destroyed, 10 more revealed themselves and opened fire. The human weapons couldn't match Valkyran technology ship for ship, but there were thousands of platforms and they all fired with computer-guided precision. "Drone swarms launching," Amy reported. "God, there must be 10,000 of them." The drones were small, barely larger than a person, but they moved fast and carried shaped nuclear charges. They swarmed around the Valkyran frigates like angry wasps, overwhelming point defense systems through sheer numbers. When they detonated, they punched holes in shields and hull armor, creating weak points for the larger weapons to exploit. Admiral Carthon watched 3 more of his ships die, consumed in nuclear fire. "Focus all weapons on the defense platforms. Ignore the drones, our shields can handle them." But the drones kept coming, thousands upon thousands of them, built by automated factories over decades of secret preparation. They died in droves, swatted from space by Valkyran defenses, but enough got through. Enough to weaken shields, to damage sensors, to create chaos. From the lunar facility, Dr. Peter Hayes activated the next phase. Hidden across the moon's surface were dozens of mass drivers. electromagnetic rails designed to throw cargo into space. Now they threw something else. Canisters of ball bearings, millions of tiny metal spheres, launched at orbital velocities directly into the Valkyrie fleet's path. The Valkyrie sensors detected the launch but dismissed it as insignificant. What damage could tiny ball bearings do? Then the first ship flew through the cloud at relativistic speeds and they understood. Each ball bearing hit with the energy of a small bomb. Thousands of them peppered the ship's hull, overwhelming its shields through sheer volume of impacts. The armor held, but sensors, weapons ports, and maneuvering thrusters were shredded. The ship tumbled out of formation, blind and helpless. "They're throwing everything at us," Carthon's tactical officer said. "Admiral, recommend we pull back and bombard from long range." "No," Carthon said through clenched teeth. "We push through. They can't sustain this level of fire indefinitely. Their platforms are dying faster than our ships." He was right. The orbital defense network was being destroyed, platform by platform, but General Stone had expected that. The platforms weren't there to win. They were there to buy time and extract a price in blood. Commander Lisa Grant watched the battle from her command center. The orbital defenses were failing. In another hour, maybe 2, the Valkyrie would have orbital superiority. Then the real bombardment would begin. "Prepare to launch the ground-based systems," she ordered. "All silos, all batteries. Everything we have." Across 6 continents, hidden missile silos opened their doors. Thousands of missiles streaked into the sky, their contrails painting white lines across the atmosphere. They rose toward orbit, toward the Valkyrie fleet, a desperate barrage from a planet fighting for its life. The Valkyrie point defenses shot them down by the hundreds. Plasma bolts and laser fire carved through the incoming swarm. But there were too many missiles, and the Valkyrie were already engaged with the orbital platforms. Missiles got through. Admiral Carthon felt his flagship shudder as a missile detonated against the shields. Then another, and another. The shields held, but the continuous bombardment was draining their power reserves. Around him, more ships reported damage, systems failing, shields weakening. "How many humans' weapons do they have?" someone shouted. "All of them," Carthon said grimly. "They're using everything they've built over their entire history. Every weapon, every bomb, every piece of military hardware. They're holding nothing back." He was right. Earth was emptying its arsenals, firing weapons that had been built decades ago and kept in storage. Old chemical rockets, obsolete nuclear missiles, experimental prototypes that had never been tested in combat. It didn't matter if they were outdated or inefficient. They were numerous, and numbers had a quality all their own. The battle raged for 6 hours. The sky above Earth burned with explosions and weapon fire. The orbital defense network died platform by platform, but they took 20 more Valkyrie ships with them. The missile barrage from Earth's surface slowed as silos ran empty, but not before destroying another 15 enemy vessels. When the firing finally stopped, Admiral Carthon took stock. He had 148 ships left, less than half of what he'd started with. His flagship was damaged, running on reserve power. Around him, his surviving ships were battered and bleeding atmosphere. Part 4. Earth's Final Stand. Admiral. Carthon ordered his sensors to scan the outer solar system. His crew worked frantically, searching for the weapons President Burke had described. Minutes passed like hours. Then the tactical officer looked up, his face pale. "Admiral, we have contacts. 12 objects, extremely small, moving at .90 light speed. They're on trajectories toward Imperial space. Time to impact at Valkyrie core worlds, 9 days, 4 hours. The bridge fell silent. Carthon stared at the display, watching the tiny dots representing the relativistic kill vehicles. Each one was moving so fast that nothing could stop it. At 90% light speed, the kinetic energy was beyond calculation. When those weapons hit their targets, entire continents would burn. "Can we intercept them?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Negative, sir. They're too fast and too far away. Even if we sent our fastest ships now, they couldn't catch up. And if we tried to destroy them in flight, we'd just create a shotgun blast of relativistic debris that would still hit the targets." Carthon felt something he hadn't experienced in his 17 campaigns. Fear. The humans had actually done it. They had built planet-killer weapons and aimed them at the Empire's heart. And they had launched them before the battle even began, making sure that even if Earth fell, the Empire would burn. "Get me high command," he ordered. On Earth, President Helen Burke waited in the command bunker. General Marcus Stone stood beside her, along with Dr. Peter Hayes and the rest of the Defense Council. They had played their final card. Now they could only wait to see if it would work. "Do you think they'll withdraw?" someone asked. "I don't know," Burke admitted. "We've cost them over half their fleet. Their admiral has to be furious, humiliated. Pride might make him attack anyway, even knowing what it will cost his people." General Stone pulled up a display showing the orbital situation. "If he attacks, we still have the ground-based defenses. And the special packages." He meant the antimatter missiles, the weapons that had cost more than entire nations' military budgets. Dr. Hayes looked sick. "If we use those, if we actually detonate antimatter weapons in atmosphere, the fallout alone will kill millions. The electromagnetic pulse will fry every electronic system on half the planet." "Better than being conquered," Stone said harshly. "Better than slavery." Captain Jake Morrison floated in the command center of the orbital station, or what was left of it. The station had taken hits during the battle, and they were running on emergency power. Amy Collins worked beside him, trying to keep their sensors operational. "Jake, I'm picking up a transmission," she said. "It's from the Valkyrin flagship to their high command. Can you decode it?" "It's not encrypted. I think they want us to hear this." She put it on the speakers. Admiral Carthon's voice filled the command center, speaking in his own language. The computer translated in real time. "High Command, this is Carthon. The humans have deployed relativistic kill vehicles aimed at our core worlds. I have verified their existence. They are real and cannot be intercepted. The humans demand our withdrawal in exchange for abort codes." There was a pause. "High Command, I recommend we accept their terms. The cost of victory here exceeds the value of this system. The humans fight with a disregard for their own survival that I have never encountered. If we take this world, we will lose our own." The response came back almost immediately. "Admiral Carthon, the Empire does not negotiate with primitives. You will complete your mission. Take their planet. If their weapons strike our worlds, we will mobilize the full Imperial fleet and exterminate every human in the galaxy." Carthon's voice was strained. "High Command, please reconsider. I have lost over half my fleet. If I press the attack, I will lose more. And for what? To claim one planet while billions of our people die? The Empire's honor is at stake. Complete your mission." The transmission ended. Jake looked at Amy, seeing his own fear reflected in her eyes. "They're going to attack. Even knowing what it means, they're going to attack." In the command bunker, President Burke had heard the same transmission. She looked around at her advisors, saw the resignation in their faces. They had gambled everything on the Valkyrin being rational, on them valuing their own people's lives enough to withdraw. But the Empire's pride was stronger than common sense. "General Stone," she said quietly, "prepare to launch the antimatter missiles. Dr. Hayes, is there any way to stop the relativistic weapons if the Valkyrin do withdraw after we damage them further?" Peter shook his head. "Madam President, those weapons launched 36 hours ago. Even with the abort codes, we can only shut down their final guidance systems. They'll still hit something in Valkyrin space, just not the exact targets we aimed for. The moment we launched them, we committed to killing millions of Valkyrin civilians." Burke closed her eyes. "So even if they withdraw now, the weapons still hit?" "Yes, ma'am. We'll have committed an act of genocide against the Valkyrin Empire, and there's no way to take it back." The president sat down heavily. "What have we done?" "We've made sure they can't destroy us without destroying themselves," General Stone said. "It's called deterrence, ma'am. Sometimes the only way to prevent war is to make war too expensive to fight." "Except we're already fighting it," Burke said bitterly. "And millions are going to die no matter what happens now." Admiral Carthon gave the order to resume the attack. His ships moved into bombardment positions, weapons charging for a final assault on Earth's surface. He felt sick doing it, knowing that in 9 days his own people would burn for this victory. But orders were orders, and the Empire's will was absolute. "Target their major population centers," he ordered. "Begin bombardment on my mark." Commander Lisa Grant saw the Valkyrin ships taking position and knew they were out of time. "Launch the antimatter missiles. All of them. Fire everything we have left." 23 missiles erupted from hidden silos, their drives burning bright enough to light up the morning sky. They were humanity's most powerful weapons. Devices that should never have been built. Weapons that turned matter into pure energy. Each one carried enough destructive force to crack continents. The Valkyrin point defenses targeted the missiles immediately. Plasma bolts filled the space between Earth and the fleet. 18 missiles died before they reached their targets. Destroyed by defensive fire or by their own unstable payloads detonating prematurely. 5 missiles got through. The first one hit a Valkyran battleship and detonated. The antimatter annihilation released energy equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs. The battleship simply ceased to exist, vaporized in a flash of light bright enough to blind unshielded sensors. The explosion was so violent that it damaged nearby ships, their shields overloading from the radiation pulse. The second and third missiles struck almost simultaneously, killing 2 more capital ships. The fourth hit Admiral Carthon's flagship. The Eternal Dominion's shields held for a fraction of a second, absorbing the initial blast. Then they failed catastrophically. The antimatter explosion consumed the forward third of the ship, melting armor and flesh alike. The reactor core destabilized, adding its own energy to the destruction. Carthon had time for one final thought before the bridge vaporized around him. He thought of his family on the Imperial homeworld, and hoped they would forgive him for failing to save them. The fifth missile missed its target but detonated in the middle of the Valkyran formation. The electromagnetic pulse scrambled sensors and communications across the fleet. Ships collided with each other, their navigation systems blinded. More vessels died in the chaos. When the light faded and the sensors cleared, the Valkyran fleet had been reduced to 83 ships. Over 2/3 of the invasion force was gone, destroyed by a species that couldn't even travel between stars. Sub-Commander Relthas took command of the survivors from his cruiser. He was young, untested, and terrified. He looked at the casualty reports and made a decision that would save both species. All ships, this is Relthas. We are withdrawing. Immediate retreat to hyperspace minimum distance. We will return to Imperial space and report what has happened here. But the High Command ordered us to complete the mission. Someone protested. The High Command isn't here, Relthas snapped. They didn't watch 217 ships die. They didn't see what these humans are capable of. We're leaving. Now. The surviving Valkyran ships turned and burned away from Earth at maximum acceleration. It took them 6 hours to reach safe hyperspace distance. As they jumped away, Relthas transmitted one final message to Earth. Humans, we are withdrawing. We cannot stop your weapons from hitting our worlds. In 9 days, millions of my people will die for the pride and stupidity of our leaders. I hope you can live with what you've done. I hope both our species can survive what comes next. On Earth, President Burke received the message in silence. The Valkyran were gone. Earth had survived. But in 9 days, the relativistic weapons would strike Valkyran space, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. Can we at least warn them? She asked. Can we tell their civilians to evacuate? Dr. Hayes shook his head. Madam President, those weapons are moving at 90% light speed. Any warning we send would travel at light speed. It would arrive at the same time as the weapons themselves, maybe 10 minutes before impact. Not enough time to save anyone. Part 5. The Warning to the Galaxy 9. Days after the battle, the relativistic weapons reached Valkyran space. Sub-Commander Relthas had made it back to the Empire's core worlds and delivered his report to the High Command. They hadn't believed him at first. How could primitives destroy 2/3 of an invasion fleet? How could they have built weapons capable of threatening the Empire itself? Then the sensors detected the incoming projectiles. 12 tiny objects, each one no larger than a bus, moving at 90% light speed. The Valkyran tried everything. They launched interceptor missiles, positioned ships in the path of the weapons, fired every defensive weapon they had. Nothing worked. At that speed, at that velocity, the projectiles were unstoppable. The first weapon hit the industrial world of Valskar, home to 3 billion Valkyran. The impact released energy equivalent to a large asteroid strike. The projectile punched through the atmosphere in microseconds and struck the southern continent. The kinetic energy converted to heat instantly, vaporizing a crater 300 kilometers wide and igniting firestorms that spread across half the planet. Then the second weapon hit. And the third. Across the Empire, worlds burned. The humans had aimed for population centers, and their targeting had been precise despite the incredible distances involved. By the time the last weapon struck, over 4 billion Valkyran were dead. Another 6 billion would die in the following weeks from radiation, starvation, and the collapse of planetary infrastructure. Empress Silvara the Eternal watched the reports from her throne world, her face frozen in shock. A quarter of the Empire's population, gone in minutes. Destroyed by weapons launched by a species that didn't even have faster than light travel. The implications were staggering. She convened an emergency session of the High Command. The military leaders who had ordered Admiral Carthon to continue his attack now sat in silence, realizing what their pride had cost. "How did we not know they had such weapons?" Silvara demanded. "How did our intelligence fail so completely?" "Your Majesty," one advisor said carefully, "they had been building these weapons for decades. Hidden facilities, secret projects, all disguised as civilian infrastructure. We saw a pre-FTL species with chemical rockets and nuclear bombs. We didn't look deeper because we assumed primitives couldn't threaten us. And now 10 billion of our people are dead because of that assumption." The Empress pulled up the transmission Earth had sent, the message from President Burke. She played it for the assembled council. Burke's voice was steady but tired, explaining how humanity had prepared for this scenario since first discovering they weren't alone in the universe. How they had built weapons not to conquer, but to ensure that conquest would be too expensive to attempt. "They warned us," Silvara said quietly. "Admiral Carthon received a warning before the battle even began. They told us to leave. They showed us their weapons data, and we laughed at them." She stood from her throne. "From this moment forward, the Sol system is designated a quarantine zone. No Valkyran ship will approach within 10 light years. No contact, no trade, no diplomacy. We will monitor them from a distance and pray to the ancestors that they never develop faster than light travel." "Your Majesty," a military commander protested, "this is a sign of weakness. The other species in the Empire will see this as surrender to primitives." "Then let them see it," Silvara said coldly, "because the alternative is worse. If we attack Earth again, the humans have made it clear they have more weapons. Enough to burn every world in the Empire. They fight with a desperation we cannot match because they have nowhere to retreat to. This is their only world, and they will destroy the galaxy before they let us take it." On Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the rebuilt command center of the orbital station. They had been working around the clock to restore some kind of defensive capability, but it would take years to rebuild what they had lost. Amy Collins worked beside him, monitoring communications from across the solar system. "Jake, we're picking up transmissions from Valkyran space," she said. "It looks like official communications from their government." They listened to the declaration of quarantine, the Empress's order to leave humanity alone. Jake felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion and sadness. They had won, but the cost haunted him every night. 4 billion Valkyran civilians dead, millions of humans killed in the initial attacks, entire colonies destroyed. "We didn't want this," he said quietly. "I know," Amy replied, "but they didn't give us a choice." Dr. Peter Hayes sat in what remained of his lunar facility, reviewing the weapons data one final time. Then he systematically deleted it all, purging the files from every system. The knowledge of how to build relativistic kill vehicles would disappear with him. He had created weapons that killed billions. That was a burden he would carry alone. General Marcus Stone gave his resignation to President Burke. "Madam President, I did what I thought was necessary to save humanity, but I can't continue to serve after what I've done. Those Valkyran civilians, they were just people living their lives, and I killed them." Burke refused the resignation. "Marcus, if you quit, then I have to quit, and so does everyone else who made these decisions. We did this together. We'll carry it together. Besides, we need you. The Valkyran might be gone, but the galaxy knows about us now. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." She was right. Word of Earth's victory had spread through the Valkyran communication networks, reaching dozens of species across hundreds of light years. The story grew with each retelling. A primitive species had destroyed an Imperial invasion fleet and forced an empire to its knees through weapons of mass destruction deployed without mercy or hesitation. Some species saw it as a warning. Others saw opportunity. But all of them understood one thing. Humans were dangerous in a way that transcended technology. They fought with the desperation of a species that had nowhere to run and nothing to lose. Commander Lisa Grant oversaw the reconstruction of Mars Colony. The shelters had protected most of the population, but rebuilding would take decades. She walked through the temporary settlements, seeing children playing in inflatable habitats, families trying to return to normal life. They had survived, but the innocence was gone. Every human in the solar system now knew that the universe was hostile, and survival meant being willing to do terrible things. 6 months after the battle, Earth received a transmission from an unknown source. It wasn't Valkyrin. The signal had come from a completely different direction, carrying a message in multiple languages that their computers could partially translate. People of Earth, we are the coalition of independent worlds. We have watched what happened between you and the Valkyrin Empire. We too have suffered under Imperial rule. We seek to make contact with you, not as conquerors or subjects, but as potential allies, species who understand the true cost of freedom. President Burke brought her advisors together to discuss the transmission. General Stone was cautious. It could be a trap, or it could be species that want to use us as weapons against the Empire. Or it could be a chance, Burke said. A chance to not be alone. To have allies who understand what we had to do and why we did it. They debated for hours. Finally, they composed a response. It was carefully worded, neither aggressive nor submissive. They explained Earth's position. Humanity wanted peace, but would defend itself with extreme prejudice if threatened. They were willing to talk, to trade, to share knowledge. But any species that mistook their desire for peace as weakness would regret it. The response included complete technical documentation of every weapon system humanity had used against the Valkyrin. It was a calculated risk, showing their capabilities to potential allies. But it was also a warning to potential enemies. This is what we can do. This is what we're willing to do. Approach with respect, or don't approach at all. Jake and Amy transferred to a new assignment, overseeing the construction of Earth's first faster-than-light research facility. They had recovered some Valkyrin technology from the debris field, and human scientists were already reverse engineering it. In a few years, maybe a decade, humanity would have their own FTL drives. They would spread beyond their solar system, carrying their technology and their warning to the stars. On his last night at the orbital station, Jake looked down at Earth and thought about everything that had happened. They had become the monsters in someone else's story. They had killed billions to save billions. History would judge them, but history was written by survivors and humanity had survived. Do you think we did the right thing? Amy asked, standing beside him. I think we did the only thing we could, Jake replied. The Valkyrin gave us a choice, surrender or mutual destruction. We chose mutual destruction and made sure they understood the consequences. Maybe that makes us monsters, but at least we're alive to feel guilty about it. Years passed. The Valkyrin Empire slowly recovered from its losses, but the memory of Earth remained. In their military academies, the battle was taught as a cautionary tale. Never underestimate a species fighting for survival. Never assume technological superiority guarantees victory. And never, ever threaten a species with extinction unless you're prepared to face extinction yourself. Humanity expanded slowly, carefully, always watching for threats. They built defensive stations in every system they colonized.